The Miami GP weekend, everybody's favorite race of the year. In all seriousness, I think we do hate on this GP a little too much. It isn't the worst track, but it's far from being the best. We've had this track since these new regulations. In 2022, it provided a pretty decent race. In 23, we had Fernando on the podium. 24 gave us Lando Norris as a winner. So at the very least, there's been some intrigue amongst the top three winners. But this week we might have some rain, which might actually make it a little bit more entertaining. With it being half a street and purpose-built track, it's a bit odd in the way that it's driven, and the sectors are very different in comparison to really any other track we have in the season. This year we are going a step down in the compounds, just like in Jeddah. It's going to be from C3 to C5, which will hopefully give us a better race, but as we saw in Jeddah, it was still very far from a two-stop, unfortunately. The real interesting part with Miami, and what makes it quite interesting, at least from a technical standpoint, is the setup compromise is very important because it's very hard for a team to be super fast in Sector 1 and 3, but then have the speed in Sector 2 because it's a completely slow traction and actually a rear-limited part of the track, while Sector 1 is very front-limited. So this track in particular doesn't really help out teams that are either front-limited or rear-limited. So we're going to see a little bit of best of both worlds for the Miami GP. It is also a sprint weekend, so the setup is going to play a very important part on whether you actually have a decent weekend or not. Looking at tire stress, it's about a 3. Honestly, it could even be a 2. It's very rare we see drivers actually conserve tires if they go for the one stop. Pretty easy to push, kind of like Jeddah as well. It's got a lot of characteristics of Jeddah, as well as Bahrain with some of the sectors. Track evolution is pretty big, just like it was in Jeddah on these very clean tracks that are not driven throughout the whole year. Track evolution builds up a lot because of the dust buildup of cars not being on the track, and the grip just being very strong because of the asphalt being used. Downforce is a 3. I think we're going to see teams compromise between a 3 or a 2. It's a lot of top speed you need here for the overtakes. And if it's a one stop like we're predicting, then I can see teams going for a 2 rather than a 3. If we're talking about the best overtaking zones and where the most action happens in Miami, it's definitely going to be in turn 1, a very important part of the track where you can make overtakes, but you gotta be side by side with the car. Very hard to have two cars go through that turn 1, as we saw with K-Mag and Logan Sargent in 2024. Other key spots of overtaking is the end of Sector 1 really leading into Sector 2, into that very slow, curvy section. Probably one of the most fun parts of the track, at least when it comes to overtaking, but then the car that is in front will have the advantage. And there are possibilities that when you go into Sector 3, there is another DRS zone to make overtakes into that last corner before you go flat out into that start-finish line. I do think the track layout actually works very well. It's more so that it doesn't have any incline anywhere. It's pretty flat, so that makes it kind of boring. But if there's a little bit of rain involved, like there is a prediction of 40%, I think the track can really deliver. So I hope we get to see the most out of this Miami GP. There are a couple of big headlines going into this GP. Obviously, we're going to have Ferrari's livery. And really the rumors coming out right now, and a lot of sources talking about it, is Checo making his way into Cadillac for 2026 could possibly be announced here. And we will see the first reveal of the 2026 Cadillac livery, and that is going to be very exciting. I'm not sure on whether it's going to be some just 2025 car or a model of the 2026 car, because that would be our first look physically actually seeing it rather than just the renders. Also, some rumors talking about Guan Yu Zhou possibly driving for Cadillac as well, but a lot more information on actually Sergio driving in 26. I would like to see the Mexican back. Huge fan base, was a great driver in the time that he was not driving with Red Bull, and I think he needs a redemption arc. But now it's time for the predictions for Miami. Let's get started with the best and the worst teams coming into this weekend. Always starting off with the worst teams. Very tricky every race, but as you know, there is one team that stands out. They're always the worst, and it's pretty easy to make a prediction of them being the worst. It is Sauber. I think the car is getting better. The drivers are driving it to really its potential. It's a bad car, very bad in dirty air like every other car, and the high speed stuff is where it really suffers. In qualifying, it's not bad, but as we get into the race weekend, it starts to chew into its tires, whether that's the sprint or the long form. We got really lucky seeing Nico score in the first race. It's going to be tough for them to score in any other race this year unless there's a bunch of carnage, so I think they're hoping for a lot of rain. Now, the team in P9, sadly I gotta put them here, but just this car is horrible. It's a boat, it's Aston Martin. I actually think they're gonna have a very solid Sector 1. As soon as that car is put into that Sector 2 curvy area, it is going to suck. It's really got no traction, which makes it super hard in these slow speed corners. And really, its mechanical grip is awful in comparison to most teams. Aerodynamically, not bad, but mechanically, it is suffering very bad on traction. I'm not sure how much this team can fix it. There is a big upgrade coming in Imola. I'll talk about that soon. And in P8, really, it's a toss-up between a couple of teams, but for me, it's going to be Haas. Mainly because high speed has not been their friend. Their top speed has been okay. Low speed is actually decent. But this track kind of gives you a bit of everything. We saw how poorly they performed in Jeddah. This track has some characteristics of Jeddah, so I do think Haas will be here. I guess it's also interchangeable between Aston and Haas, but honestly, they're both pretty bad cars in most scenarios, Aston especially. Now looking at the best teams, kind of like Sauber being the worst, I also think it's pretty easy to call out that McLaren is the best car, whatever track you put it on. This track has all kinds of different corner speeds. You got low, medium, and high. This car is the best overall in downforce, and just the balance is perfect on the Papaya cars, so I gotta put them in P1. Now, I'm putting this team in P2, but it is one driver actually making this car go into P2, and I think that's Max, with Red Bull. The car itself is good in the front limited parts, which is why it was actually very strong in Jeddah. I don't think it was the strongest car. It was Max that actually put it on pole and made the difference. I do believe he's going to make the difference here as well. It is a good car, depending on the track. Bahrain definitely showed its weakness in really the rear limited stuff, so I think Sector 2 is going to be a bit tricky. But thankfully, they have the high-speed stuff in Sector 1, which is really good on the Red Bull car. So I do think Max can throw himself in the mix with Oscar and Lando. And I really hope Yuki at some point can be up there with Max, but hard to tell. It's a very hard car to drive, and right now, Yuki is still a decent step behind. I'm talking 5 to 6 tenths. And yes, I have thrown up Mercedes a couple of times in second or even third place, but I think Ferrari, arguably, is the third best car. Yes, in qualifying, they're probably fourth, and they're quite a way off of Red Bull and McLaren, but their race pace is super strong. Yes, I've also seen the reports of them talking that the car is really good in clean air. Well, that's a pretty obvious. Every car seems to be pretty decent in clean air. I don't think that's the main attraction to the car. It's really good on its tires, and the balance comes alive as they add more fuel. In qualifying, they just can't extract the potential they want to. The tires never really get to the stage they want them to, and by the time they get into Sector 3, they overheat, and we've seen these problems continue to persist in every single year of these regulations. I do think if they can get a good qualifying spot, they could fight with Lando, Oscar, Max, especially with Charles. From Lewis' side, probably not so much. Okay, my flop of the race, as I was just talking about him, I think it's going to be Lewis. I hope I'm wrong with this prediction. I would love to see Lewis actually put it up in a good position, but seeing the negative comments that have been coming out, him saying he has to rewire his whole brain to pretty much be able to drive this car, it really doesn't make me confident in putting him in a high position. Leclerc just has been much better in the race and qualifying. That difference in tenths is very clear to see. And Lewis is just not comfortable. So till he gets to grips with that car, which I think eventually he will, if not in 26 he will. Right now, it's pretty easy to put him in flop of the race. That might not mean him actually being out of the top 10, but he's been behind Leclerc in most races by 20 or 30 seconds, which to me does not signify a great drive. Now my surprise team for Miami is going to be Williams. They performed extremely well in Jeddah. This track has a lot of those characteristics. I believe Williams can double point score yet again here, and we can see another good Carlos Sainz drive. Would be nice to see. I'm predicting double points for the team. My unchained driver, it's going to be Fernando. He had an outstanding GP in 2023. I think he made the most out of that bad 2024 car as well. They put on a very bulky rear wing, didn't end up resulting in anything good. Now the car, it's going to be good in Sector 1 as I stated. I think it's going to be pretty decent in Sector 3 as well. Sector 2 is really going to kill it. I think Fernando can get a P10. I'm just going to be bold out there. It's going to surprise us. That's the whole point of the unchained driver. Fernando, please do us well. We need to see him get a point. This is quite sad seeing a two-time world champion in this boat of a car. But a lot of good reports coming out for 2026, which is promising for Fernando, who could possibly have his last season. Will he get a third? that's going to be a tough task to achieve, especially considering how far behind they are right now. There's a big upgrade in Imola. We'll talk more about that in a upgrades video. And for me, the best drive, which will probably give you a hint in my top 5, is going to be Lando Norris. I think he's going to shut us up. It's definitely been easy to go at Lando when it's not been going very well. He won here last year. He's been pretty comfortable with the track. I think it's going to be a good Lando drive. Now for my top 5, let's talk about it. I'm going to put in George Russell at the P5 position because this guy does not get out of the top 5 positions and he's done extremely well. I think the car is still lacking a few tenths. There was a supposed upgrade coming here. Now it's been pushed back to Imola, at least from the reports that I've been hearing. So I think we're still going to see that car be in 4th. It's not far off in race pace, but in qualifying, I can see him putting it up in maybe even P2, P3, something really high. He's just going to fall back in the race because I think the other cars are quicker. In P4, I'm going to put in Charles. Got a podium last time with Ferrari, was the first of the year. Insane to just say that. He's been really good and a lot of underrated drives so far in a very tricky Ferrari car to drive. Now in P3, it's going to be the championship leader. I'm going to put in Oscar. He is very good here. He actually showed it off in 24. Unfortunately, a little bit of contact kind of put his race in the mud. He had a chance of potentially getting a P2 or P3, which is quite insane to say. So I'm going to put Oscar on the podium. Max is going to be my P2. I was highly debating putting him at victory, but I'm just smelling a Lando redemption here. Not that he's been doing horrible. He's still been up in the fights. I believe he's going to win here. He has to prove it to us. This is a good track for him. His first ever win in Formula 1. I believe he's going to pull it off again. And I hope I'm right because a lot's been said about Lando. Hopefully he can prove to himself and really the critics that he's still in this championship fight. We'll have to see after the weekend. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Leave your predictions. Let me know your flop, your surprise, unchained driver, and best drive. And please leave a like and subscribe. It would mean the world. And peace.